Imagine flying over the driest desert in the world. Kilometers and kilometers of sand, rock, and silence. Nothing. Apparently nothing. But when scientists pointed their satellites at those empty expanses and analyzed the data, what they found beneath the surface changed everything we thought we knew about ancient civilizations, forgotten wars, and secrets that have been waiting centuries to be discovered. Today we're going to talk about something that seems like science fiction but is completely real. Satellite technology that is tearing the veil of the desert and exposing a buried world that no one expected to find. And we're going to finish with one of the most chilling and best-preserved finds of recent years. 4 swords between 1,800 and 2,000 years old, hidden in a cave by the Dead Sea, so perfect they look like they were put away yesterday. Stay until the end because this gets amazing. Unfortunately, you like, subscribe, and share. For centuries, archaeology relied on shovels, picks, and a lot of luck. The archaeologists walked through the desert, marked areas of interest, and began to excavate. It was a slow, expensive process with a huge margin of error. You could spend years searching and find nothing, or worse, digging in the wrong place and missing the find of the century just 10 meters away. All that changed with the arrival of satellite remote sensing. Modern satellites do more than just take high-resolution photographs. They use technologies such as synthetic aperture radar, known by its acronym SAR, which can penetrate layers of dry sand up to several meters deep. This works because desert sand, especially in arid areas like the Sahara, the Arabian Peninsula, or the Judean Desert, has a composition that allows certain radar wavelengths to pass through it almost unimpeded. What the radar sends back to the satellite is not a photographic image. It is a map of densities, textures, and shapes. And when researchers learn to read that map, they begin to see extraordinary things. Irrigation canals of extinct civilizations, caravan routes that crossed continents, geometric structures that could not have been formed by nature, entire cities buried under meters of sand waiting to be rediscovered. Space archaeologist Sarah Parcak, who works with NASA satellite imagery, has identified thousands of potential archaeological sites in Egypt, the Middle East, and the Mediterranean using this methodology. In some cases, what the satellites revealed not only surprised researchers, but rewrote entire chapters of human history. But satellites don't work alone. They are the first clue, the starting point of an investigation that then continues in the field, with teams of archaeologists, metal detectors, low-altitude drones, and laser scanning technology called LiDAR. Together, these methods form a detection system that is revolutionizing the way we understand the past. The desert is, paradoxically, one of the best preservers of history that exists. We think of it as a hostile, empty, destructive place, and it is so for living beings, but for objects, for structures, for organic materials such as wood, leather, or papyrus, the desert can be a perfect museum. Because, due to the combination of 3 factors, extreme heat, lack of humidity, and darkness. Humidity is the great enemy of preservation. Water activates biological decomposition processes, allows the growth of fungi and bacteria, and oxidizes metals. In a desert like the Judean Desert, southeast of Jerusalem, next to the Dead Sea, the humidity rate can be so low that organic materials simply dry out before they can decompose. And that's where one of the most impressive discoveries of recent years comes in. In June of this year, a team of Israeli archaeologists announced a discovery that shook the international scientific community. In a cave in the Judean Desert, located southeast of Jerusalem in an area near the Dead Sea, 4 swords were found in an absolutely extraordinary state of preservation. We're not talking about fragments. We're not talking about unrecognizable rusted parts. We are talking about 4 complete swords, with their hilts intact and their sheaths still encasing the metal blades. The wood and leather of the handles and sheaths were still there, detailed, almost as if someone had put them away last week. And these swords are between 1,800 and 1,900 years old. It all began in a fairly typical way in modern archaeology. A team exploring the area first found something that seemed minor, an iron point from a Roman javelin, the type of weapon known as a pilum, and some fragments of worked wood. They were small clues, but intriguing enough to warrant a deeper inspection of the cave. The archaeologists returned equipped with metal detectors and began systematically scanning every inch of the cave. It was then that the instruments began to indicate metallic anomalies in areas that at first glance appeared empty. The swords were wedged behind stalactites, hidden in a crack in the rock, as if someone had deliberately placed them there to prevent them from being found. And that's probably how it was. To understand why these swords were there, we need to go back to the 2nd century of the after Christ. In the year 132 Anno Domini, the Jewish people of Judea rose up in arms against Roman rule in what is known as the Bar Kokhba revolt, named after its leader, Simon Bar Kokhba, whom many considered the promised Messiah. It was the third great Jewish rebellion against Rome, and in many ways the most devastating. Bar Kokhba initially achieved what seemed impossible, expelling the Roman legions from large areas of Judea and establishing an independent state for almost 3 years. The coins were minted with his name. Jerusalem was reclaimed. The dream of independence seemed, for a moment, possible. But the Roman Empire was not an enemy that would surrender easily. Emperor Hadrian sent massive reinforcements, including some of the best legions in the Roman army, and the repression was brutal. In the year 135 Anno Domini, the revolt was crushed. According to historical sources, hundreds of thousands of Jews died or were enslaved. Judea was renamed Syria Palestina in a deliberate effort to erase the Jewish identity of the region. During those years of war, the Jewish rebels used the Judean desert as a refuge and base of operations. The caves in that region, many of them in steep cliffs along the Dead Sea, served as hiding places for people, documents, and weapons. It is in this context that the newly discovered swords acquire their full meaning. Leave a like, subscribe, and share. Researchers believe the weapons were brought to the cave by rebel fighters, possibly after collecting them from a battlefield or taking them from Roman units. It was common in ancient times to reuse the weaponry of the defeated enemy. A Roman sword was a valuable tool, well-forged, reliable in combat. For a Jewish guerrilla fighter battling the most powerful army in the world, acquiring Roman weapons was a strategic coup. The swords were then hidden in the cave, probably with the intention of retrieving them later. That moment never came. Beyond the emotional and historical impact of the discovery, archaeologists are especially excited about what the preservation of these objects could reveal from a scientific and technical point of view. Wood and leather are materials that rarely survive for entire centuries. When they do, they offer information that metals and ceramics simply cannot provide. The type of wood used in the hilts, for example, can reveal where the swords were manufactured. Different regions of the Roman Empire used different woods depending on what was locally available. If the wood is from a species that grows in northern Europe, the sword was probably manufactured in a northern province and then transported to the Judean front. If it is Mediterranean wood, the origin is different. The leather from the pods can be subjected to DNA analysis to identify which animal it came from and what geographical region that animal was from. The metal isotopes in the leaves can indicate the mines from which the iron or steel came. Every detail is a clue in a huge puzzle. There is something profoundly human about these objects. Someone hid them. Someone waited to come back for them. That person was never able to do it. And almost 2,000 years later, we found them, almost intact, like a letter sent from the past that finally reached its destination. The discovery of the Dead Sea swords was not initiated by satellites, but it is representative of a new era in archaeology where technology is radically changing what can be found and how it is found. Satellites identify areas of interest. Drones map them in detail. Metal detectors and LiDAR reveal what lies just below the surface, and the archaeologists finally excavate with surgical precision that minimizes damage and maximizes the information recovered. In regions like the Arabian Desert, researchers have used satellite images to identify thousands of ancient structures that had never been cataloged. Stone corrals, caravan roads, battlefields, settlements of civilizations that have no name in any history book. In the Sahara, radar has revealed dry riverbeds that 10,000 years ago crossed what is now barren sand, and alongside those rivers, evidence of human settlements. The desert holds more secrets than we imagine, and every year with more precise technology and better prepared teams, we are getting closer to hearing them. 4 swords in a cave in the Judean desert, hidden almost 2,000 years ago by people who fought for their freedom against the most powerful empire of their time, preserved by the silence and dryness of the desert for generations, and finally found thanks to a combination of archaeological intuition, modern technology, and perhaps a bit of that luck that always accompanies great discoveries. That's what the desert hides, not just sand and rock, history, lives, decisions made in moments of desperation or bravery that still resonate centuries later. Satellite and remote sensing technology is not only revolutionizing desert exploration, but is also opening a new frontier in archaeology, the subsurface. The use of SAR technology, LiDAR, and more recently, GPR, ground-penetrating radar. It is allowing researchers to see through the earth without moving a single shovel. This capacity has enormous implications not only in deserts, but also in areas covered by dense vegetation or even under the asphalt of modern cities that were built on top of ancient ones. The GPR, for example, works by sending electromagnetic pulses into the subsoil and measuring the time it takes for them to return and the intensity with which they do so. Buried structures such as stone walls, foundations, or ceramic floors alter the signal, creating anomalies that are mapped in 3 dimensions. In the Mediterranean region, this technology has been used to map entire Roman and Greek cities that are buried under layers of alluvial sediments. In South America, airborne LiDAR has penetrated the dense Amazon rainforest, revealing complex networks of pre-Hispanic settlements, fortification systems, and extensive agricultural fields that challenge historical notions about the development of civilizations in that region. This synergy of technologies is key. The satellites provide the wide sweep and initial tracking. GPR and LiDAR, whether on the ground or mounted on drones, provide high-resolution images and depth information about potential finds. This approach not only speeds up the discovery process, but also makes it much less destructive. Instead of making random cuts in the landscape, archaeologists now excavate with purpose and pinpoint accuracy, maximizing the amount of information recovered from each site before it is inevitably exposed to the degradation of time and weather. History is no longer just what we find on the surface, but everything that technology allows us to reveal about what lies beneath it. Leave a like, subscribe, and share. See you in the next video.